Hey, I'm Chris, and this is MMA for You. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC on Fox 20, Shevchenko versus Holm. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug my own author's website at www.chrismoldon.com. I am an author specializing in the fantasy genre, and you can check out a couple of my works, starting with my first novel, an action adventure fantasy called The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom for $4.99 on PDF format at www.chrismondon.com, or if you have an e-reader, you can buy it for $4.99 at amazon.com. Also, you can check out my short stories and collections of short stories, starting with the fantasy horror short story, The Land of the Wooden Statues, just for $1.99. It's one I'm actually trying to make into a full-fledged novel. My horror collection, which is a collection of three of my gothic horror stories, short stories, and my fancy fable collection, which is a collection of four of my fancy fable short stories, and those are all just $1.99. Okay, on to this card. We got the big upset with Shevchenko beating Holm. A lot to talk about there. Had Barboza getting a big win over Melendez. Francis. Now everyone's calling his last name a bit differently. There's like I say Ngannou. They say Gano. I might actually just go with Gano from now on. I think I'll go with Gano. Felice Herrera got a good win. Eddie Wineland got a much needed win. Fun fight with Jason Knight versus Jim Ehlers. So, yeah. My picks, 6 out of 11. Ones I missed were Luis Enrique versus Dmitry Smolyakov. Um, Knight versus Ehlers. Liviera versus Muntazri. Um, Sainz versus Wineland. And Shevchenko versus Holm. As far as bonuses go, Herrig and Wineland earned Performance of the Night bonuses, while Knight versus Ehlers took home Fight of the Night. Okay, let's get started. So Valentina Shevchenko defeated Holly Holm by unanimous decision. My analysis for this was quite wrong. I'm not gonna lie. I definitely should have rewatched the Kaufman and Amanda Nunez fights. And rewatched this. I knew she had a really good trip takedowns and really strong clinch game. Um, it's that counter striking game that needed some more analysis there. Um, the other thing that's really noticeable about this fight too, besides the fact that Holm briefly dropped Shevchenko in the first round, there are all. I mean, I mentioned it in the predictions. I mentioned I almost kind of made fun of her in a sense of Holm, and just in the sense of saying like, yeah, she only has like four strikes. It's like a head kick, a side kick, a jab, and a cross, and she kind of does. Like, I mean, she has more than that, obviously, but like, you know what really want to say, and this fight really shows it too, is she has a lot of limitations. She beats Ronda Rousey and she looks great. And she almost beat Misha Tate until like the last round. So, you know, the way she fights seemingly looked difficult for her opponents in this division. That is not the case for Valentina Shevchenko. Um, Stylistically, Shevchenko just, all said in hindsight, obviously. But Shevchenko just had a style that beats Holm. Here's the limitations with Holm, and this is something to analyze moving forward with both fighters. So, you know, Holm pulls her strikes a lot. I mean, it's something that we've seen. It's something that kind of Rubish actually like pointed out in an analysis with Holm versus Shevchenko and Bloody Elbow, and yeah, she punches air purposefully. Um, she also does. Um, this is something that some Jackson Winklejohn fighters do. She has uh like what's the word, like predetermined like combinations. Okay, I have a jab, cross, head kick. I have left hook, right hand, body kick. And it's like, Holmes seems to kind of have that, where it's just kind of like, I have this combo, I will use this combo, and even if I miss, I will still throw this combo. And you can see it a lot. Like, watch her throw just like that, like, the rushing 1-2-1, 1-2-3 punch. How many times she got countered for that? She just throws it because it's like it's like a muscle memory strike, combination that she has. I mean, all fighters have it. Um, yeah, all fighters have it. Like Jose Aldo has like the over and right, left to the body, um, outside leg kick. I mean, it's just a combination that they like, but it's almost their skill set, so it can be studied. They don't really break out of that. And when Holm did break out of that finally in the fifth round, she was actually, I mean, she was getting hit, but she was actually just doing better than she was in like the other rounds, save for the first. The other problem with Holly Holm is she's either pulling her strikes short, or she greatly overcommits, where she's just rushing in, throws a big right hand, rushes in and throws like this uh like 1-2-3 combination, and she gets countered for it. So it's like she definitely is she likes to counter, and she just cannot lead. I mean, that's the thing with Holly Holm. And yeah, it's definitely something to look out for in the future. I don't think, excuse me, I don't think too many fighters though in this division outside of Shevchenko really have that skill set. Because this counter striking ability of Shevchenko was just on point. She'd counter with a leg kick and or her. Joe Rogan kept pointing out the right hook. No, that's another problem with Holm too. Man, her head does not move. I was like, wow, you just cannot seem to move your head. Um, yeah, I'm not trying to make fun of her. It's just like in hindsight, I'm watching the fight. It's like, wow, she has this many weaknesses. I didn't notice them until this fight. That's just what happened. It's like, wow, she found a person that can really bring out her weaknesses. I mean, some opponents do that. Holm did the same with Ronda Rousey. I mean, it's just the way it is. Um, there's just stylistic mismatches that can have that can really show a fighter's limitations. Um, but yeah, there's a lot to like with Shevchenko. I knew she had a really strong takedowns from the clinch, and she was showing them quite well in Holm. Holm, she did get. You can really see how strong she is too. She got back to her feet really well. When she gets put on her back, her immediate instinct is to get back to her feet. So that's always good, you know. Um, the problem is it's always in that transition period. If you like, there's a point where in the fight, I believe, when Shevchenko actually had half guard on top, and once the position is more settled, then Holmes seems to have a really hard time. Like when Misha Tate got her back, and kind of settled into that position, she Holmes seems to have a really hard time once the ground position or grappling position is a bit more established and not in her favor. It's like she'll get taken down once the mat hits her back. She's scrambling to get back to her feet, which is fine. Hey, that's fine. That's actually a good instinct to have, in my opinion. But it also works against her too, in a sense where with Misha Tate, she just gives her back too much. Um, Also, Holm was actually doing pretty well in the clinch when she had Shevchenko's back against it. Uh, if she had a stronger clinch game, I think she could have done some real damage. She was a taller fighter. There was actually a knee to the body that looked really good. She gonna need the thighs more. Maybe get some elbows in there. She's a much taller fighter. That that's a part of her game that like I know she's such an outfighter and such a counter striker, but like it's a part of her game that could actually be quite strong if she or strengthened if she really put a little more time to it. It seemed like she really hesitated to even just throw knees at times. Um, but yeah, Shevchenko just getting those counter strikes, getting the takedowns. By the time the fifth round came along, I mean, Shevchenko was like finally leading a bit more, throwing some good combinations. There's a lot to like with Shevchenko. I think as far as who she should get next, Juliana Pena is like probably the most logical choice at this point. Um, there's really no one else outside of a title shot that I think would really be a good matchup for Shevchenko. Or like a deserved next matchup for Shevchenko. Um, Pena's coming off the win over Kat Zingano. She's on the cusp of title contention. It just makes sense. And Shevchenko is just coming off this big win over Holm. She won the third round against Amanda Nunes. And hey, if that fight did go rounds 4 and 5, hey, we could, Shevchenko could possibly beat Nunes. So that can always be sold. As far as Holly Holm gets, I think Kat Zingano would be a good fight for her just because Zingano just lost to Pena. Both are on like 2 fight losing streaks, right? Yeah, Zingano to Rousey and then Pena. And then Holm is on 2 fight losing streak too. So those fights I think make the most sense. There are other good fights for Holm. Um, Pretty much just anyone that's lost to like Ronda Rousey is a good fight for Holm at this point. But yeah, this fight is also demonstrating that like with the loss of Ronda Rousey, this division is gonna be like constantly in flux. I mean, every fighter in this division, including Ronda Rousey, and I said it after UFC 200, and it shows it here too, just has noticeable weaknesses and very gaping holes in their like game. I mean, it really showed here about Holly Holm. Misha Tate is kind of like a comeback kid. She's someone that like loses and then she wins, and you see that in a lot of her fights too. Even the Sarah McMahon fight, the Holly Holm fight. And she's not the greatest striker. Amanda Nunes has gas tank issues. Um, everyone just has noticeable weaknesses in their game. Like Valentina Shevchenko, slow starter, first round, right? She lost the first round. She got dropped in the first round in this fight. There you go. Like here's Valentina Shevchenko's weakness. Like they're so noticeable. Juliana Pena just cannot strike. I mean, she just does not strike. You know. Um. So yeah, this division is a division that is hard to pick. Who's gonna win? Generally speaking, just in the sense that everyone has a lot of weaknesses, and like the right stylistic matchup is probably really what to look out for. It's like, but even then, like everyone's got weaknesses. Like Kat Zingano was pretty much like throwing Pena around for like one round and like you know 1 round and like 2 minutes or so, before Pena was able to take over, for example. So it's tough. Like these weaknesses are too glaring, and so yeah, picking fights in this division, especially on top, I mean it's relatively tough. I think in title fights, I think that title is going to keep changing hands. Um, I can't really trust Amanda Nunes to keep the title for any more than one, maybe 2 title defenses. I mean, you know, so But yeah, it's interesting. It's always nice to see someone like Shevchenko move up into ranks too. You know, it's just new blood. They're young. You know, like Shevchenko's young. Juliana Pena, she's young. You know, still in her 20s, still improving. So at the very least, it's nice to see new blood at the top of the division coming around the top of the division at the same time. Next fight after that, Edson Barboza defeated Gilbert Melendez by unanimous decision. Um, this fight kind of it kind of went the way I thought it would. Barboza showing the really strong leg kicks. Melendez he pushed forward. Primarily boxed with Barboza. Even wobbled him. Like a couple times. Noticeable one in the second where he it didn't necessarily drop him, but it got him. You know, got him definitely hurt. Um, Barboza's able to shuck off Melendez's takedowns quite easily as well. The thing with Melendez that a lot of people are saying at this point is that as far as the elite of the division goes, the game has passed him by. He's not a heavy puncher. He is a good wrestler and good ground and pound, but you know we're getting to a point of MMA where it's like so hard to keep an opponent on his back at this point, especially at lightweight. You know, it's a really hard time. It's a hard enough thing to take an opponent down. It's a hard enough thing to keep him down too. I mean, Habib can do it, but um, he's kind of the exception and not the norm. Um, and Barboza's been steadily improving. You know that there are, I think psychologically he's getting a lot better. There's like a combination up against a cage where Melendez hit him clean. And I think the old Barboza, like from a while back, would have just folded, but this one circled out. He has a much better left hook now. Barboza's got like this really nice left hook. Um, he's still he's still a bit chinny, but he's getting better defensively. I did feel that Barboza was coasting near the end of the fight, and that's fine. You know, he's on the cusp of title contention. I figured that like he was ahead, you know, in the scorecards, and you know he just decided to coast. You know what? Why not? I guess. As far as who Barboza should get next, maybe Rafael dos Anjos. Michael Chiesa is coming off. You know, I'm just thinking of guys coming off wins. Maybe a rematch with Tony Ferguson would be cool too. I mean, you could throw in Habib versus Barboza as like a title eliminator, or number one contender fight. That'd be cool too. I mean, and I read in an interview where Barboza just does not want to fight Eddie Alvarez like they're friends. So that should actually be a bit interesting how that dynamic works. Um, with Melendez, I think he should still get top 15 guys. Maybe like the loser of Poirier versus Michael Johnson. Maybe like an ally of Quinto or something like that. I mean, if you want to go lower than that, you can give him like. I know Ross Pearson's fighting like Masvidal, but like win or lose, maybe like a Ross Pearson or someone like that too will work. Um, Next right after that, Francis Ganu. I'm gonna call him Ganu from now on. Defeated Boyan Mahajovic by TKO in the first round. Mihailovic. But I can't pronounce his last name. This was a mismatch. Size-wise, it was like a light heavyweight. Heck, a middleweight fighting a legit heavyweight. I mean, size-wise, this is a big mismatch. Experience-wise, because I mean, Bojan has more. I want to say he has more overall fights, but I like you know Ganu has been fighting for UFC for what, like he beat Luis Enrique, then like Curtis Blades, you know. He's at least had octagon experience. Um, the stoppage, I was fine with the stoppage. I know there are some people, Rogan included. Well, no, not Rogan. Um, But I know there are some people that thought it was a bit early and whatnot. I was fine with the stoppage. Didn't even, it was hard to tell if a punch really landed that dropped Mihalovic. But this guy's the best prospect in heavyweight, easily. He's got the size, the look. He doesn't move like a heavyweight. He's athletic. But I still want to see him not just get a step up in competition, but not like a huge step up in competition. I'd like to see him fight like maybe like Daniel Emelianchuk. Someone. He's coming off a win. Maybe Shamil Abdurrahimov. Is that his name? Yeah. And he's coming off a win. Maybe the winner of Hamilton versus Grabowski. I don't think he really. I'd like to see him develop a bit more of his game. But yeah, he's best prospect in heavyweight at this point, in my opinion. With Bojan, dude, this guy should cut down to light heavyweight. If not, maybe even middleweight. He's 5'11". He's not even gonna be a big. He's not even gonna be a big light heavyweight. I think it might behoove him to cut to middleweight moving forward. Next fight after that, Felice Herrig defeated Kylan Curran by rear naked choke in the first round. Man, this is good stuff. I picked Herrig to win. The problem with Kylan Curran is she's super raw. She's a fighter that, quite honestly, should be getting a lot more seasoning in Invicta than fighting Felice Herrig. It's pointed out to me that Felice Herrig's wins are all to like top competition. It's like Barb Honchak, Carlos Esparza, Tisha Torres, and like Paige Van Zandt. It's just better competition. I'm critical of Van Zandt, but like she's definitely a really good athlete. These are solid. Her striking looked good. She was striking with Kylan Curran, throwing these combinations looked clean, and then like she took her down. Her pass from like half guard to the back was pretty slick. And she's a solid fighter. She's not gonna be. I think she's not gonna be like top 5 or anything like that. I can never see her fight for a title, but she's something, and she's been fighting for a while now. She's something of like that veteran that you kind of have to get over to like fight the top. She's pretty much like a gatekeeper in my opinion of this division because she's well-rounded, well-experienced, and whatnot. And it really showed here. I mean, like Kylan Curran's a prospect, but she is a extremely raw and inexperienced prospect, and Herrig was just better everywhere, pretty much. With that said, Herrig should get like a Ronda Marcos, maybe even like I know she's coming off a loss, but like Jessica Aguilar or something like that. Next, Kylan Curran. I mean, in the UFC, she's lost 3 or like she has 4 fights in the UFC and only won 1. I mean, she should fight some really low-level competition. If they want to keep her, I mean, it's going to be like someone coming off a loss, like Christina Stenchiu or something like that. Someone like really low-level is who she should probably fight next. Next fight after that, on the prelims, Eddie Wineland defeated Frankie Saenz by TKO in the 3rd round. This was the best for Eddie Wineland I've seen. This is the Eddie Wineland. I even said it in my predictions. It's like, if we see these old Eddie Wineland, he's moving around, throwing his jab and whatnot, defending takedowns, yeah, he can beat Frankie Saenz, I think I said that. I'm pretty sure I said that. But we aren't seeing the guy. We're seeing this guy that's afraid to pull the trigger and blah, 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 blah. And then he comes in, TKO Frankie Saenz. I'm like, this was not a good, here's what I thought would happen and what reality happened. I thought Frankie Saenz would be able to mix in his striking with his wrestling. What happened was that Wineland was playing a really good range game. He was going in and out a lot. He was moving around a lot. And Frankie Saenz could not get his wrestling going. So he can't mix in his wrestling very well against a moving target. And Um, so he was kind of left with having to box with the better boxer. Frankie Saenz isn't a potent finisher. He's not much of a knockout threat. Um, and at the very least, Eddie Wineland, at the very least, is a knockout threat. I mean, he does have some power in his strikes, and it kind of showed here. Frankie Saenz is a tough guy. He's always shown to be something of a pretty tough guy. And this is a good win for Eddie Wineland. Gets him kind of back on track. Um, I don't I don't think he beats a good amount of these top 15 guys, but I'd like to see him try. With Frankie Saenz, maybe it'll be a good comeback fight for like an Aljamain Sterling. I think it'd be pretty cool. Or even a Tomas Almeida. Because he's tough. Frankie Saenz is tough. He's a tough guy to deal with. Um, but yeah. And Eddie Wineland. I forgot if Jimmy Rivera is fighting someone. Well, I'd like to see Jimmy Rivera versus Eddie Wineland. I think that'd be cool. Um, might be kind of high, high up the ladder for him. I think Garbrandt's fighting someone, if I'm not mistaken. Dang, who else is in this division? That's like more top 15 than anything else. Yeah, just some people in the top 10 to 15 for Eddie Wineland next. Next fight after that, Darren Elkins defeated Godfrey Pepe by unanimous decision. Pretty much what I expected, to be honest with you. Darren Elkins is your ultimate grinder. He's tough, you know. Pepe tried his best. He pulled guard a couple times. Not surprised by that. And he had Elkins in a couple scares in the first round, but for the most part, Elkins getting takedown, getting his ground and pound going, staying busy, staying on top, and he got the win that like he usually does. I think Pepe though was a bit more like a lot of fighters just kind of surrender, like underneath Darren Elkins. I think this one's a little tougher because like Pepe's game is a ground game, so he never actually truly surrendered when he was on his back or anything like that. But nonetheless, good one for Elkins. Stays as this like gatekeeper type of fighter at this point, and Pepe just give him some give him some fun fights. I think he might just be better off as a fun action fighter at this point. I don't really think of him as much of a prospect, if he can even be considered one anymore. He's a real loose cannon type fighter. Next right after that, Kamaru Usman defeated Alexander Yakovlev by unanimous decision, 30-25 across the board. Pretty much a grinding performance from Kamaru Usman. Not one that I didn't expect. One thing about Usman, he's so strong. Yakovlev's good. He's a good wrestler, but it's not like he hasn't been taken down before. I want to say Nika Musoke is taking him down, right? And Damian Maia was able to take him down over and over again. So it's kind of what I expect from Usman. We'll probably see a lot more of this from Usman moving forward. I mean, it's not too dissimilar from when he showed from Leon Edwards, or even from his first opponent in the UFC. And of course, like Usman got the arm triangle on him, but yeah, I can see Usman, especially using his strength and athleticism, pinning guys up against the cage, forcing that takedown, and getting a grinding win if need be. He looks like one of those guys. I mean, like, which is kind of interesting because on the regional scene, actually, Usman was a potent finisher. Um, it doesn't look like at this level. I don't think that's going to be the same thing. There's better strikers than him, and he's a great wrestler, but his finishing instincts, like he's not going to finish guys with ground and pound that easily in the UFC at this level. It's just not going to happen. Or just pure ground and pound without rocking them or anything like that. And besides like an arm triangle, he's not much of a submission threat. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this until eventually he's just going to like knock some dude out standing. I mean, I think that's going to happen. He does a lot with wrestlers too. He has the power. I mean, it's there, you know. He just needs to like be able to put it together, and then we'll probably see like this like monster of a guy that isn't just grinding wins. At this point, he's just fight more like mid-level competition. Some of those tough out cut type guys. Um, Let me think. Um, Jeez, how come I can't think of anyone right now? Um, Maybe even not like a Ryan LaFleur or something like that. Or maybe it'd be pretty good like a Barbarena because he's a good prospect tester and he's tough as nails. He'd be pretty good. Nordine Talib actually wouldn't be too bad either. Just something like mid-level guys like that. That'd be like a pretty tough. Yakovlev, just more like lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Next round, I thought Mikael Prazeres to beat JC Cottrell by unanimous decision. He beat him just as I thought he would. He's a grinder, and that's what he did. He's actually pretty slick though. He actually almost got that omoplata. So, like, even on his back, he knows what he's doing on the ground for the most part. But yeah, he grinded his way to victory, and both guys just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Again, on the Fight Pass prelims, Alex Oliveira defeated James Muntazri by unanimous decision. Man, he schooled Muntazri. I gotta say this right now. I get a lot of criticism for like not picking underdogs, and so I picked Muntazri to beat Alex Oliveira with that in my mind. Because like I'm trying to like satiate these people that are like, oh yeah, I'm picking up underdogs. I don't even look at odds. I just kind of pick who I think will win. Like Felice Herrig was apparently an underdog. I was like, when I heard that, I was like, really? I thought she would be the favorite. You know, for the most part, as far as I know, I you know, I don't try to pick a person because they're a favorite or an underdog. I didn't pick Felice Herrig to win because she's an underdog. I did, however, pick James Muntazri to win because he was an underdog. And I know I said I don't look at odds. I don't, but I can tell. For the most part, you can tell who the favorite is and who isn't. And some of them are pretty obvious. This one was a bit obvious. Like Alex Olivier's like only last loss was to like Donald Cerrone. Muntazri's like beating like guys that are barely UFC level. So I saw like a couple, very few holes in like Oliveira that Muntazri may be able to exploit. That didn't happen, obviously, in the fight. But yeah, I'm gonna stop doing that. Like picking guys just because I know they're the underdog, and like to please these people that like criticize me for not picking underdogs. I just pick who I think will win. That's the way it is. That's why I thought Felice Herrig would win. Not because she's an underdog, just because I thought she'd win. That's it. You know, uh, that's really what it comes down to. I did the same with Rafael Assunção versus TJ Dillashaw last time out. And you can even read the UFC 200 comments. Like, some guy actually just, like, points it out, more or less. Like, he saw through what I was doing, I just kind of threw that one out there to, like, please these people, It's like, I can't do that, And, like, it's like, damned if I do, damned if I don't. It's like, oh, if I don't pick underdogs, then I'm going to get criticized. Oh, but if I do pick an underdog and he loses, oh, I'm criticized anyways. So it's like I'm damned if I do, and I'm damned if I don't. And I don't know if I should have some sort of like underdog quota. I was actually told too that when I did these predictions, apparently like the only odds that were available were only for like the main event and a couple other fights. Like the whole when I did these predictions, like the whole card didn't even have any odds yet. So like that's the other thing too. Like I'm doing picks even before like certain sites apparently even have odds up for them. So um, yeah, I had to get that. I guess that's a little like house cleaning or whatever you want to call it out of the way. But Alex Oliveira, fun action fighter. If he needs to take the fight to the ground, he will do that. He's still a good but wild striker. Um, super athletic, super strong, and he just beat up Montage. He also beat up his nuts too, if I'm not mistaken, knee. Um, but yeah, just more like mid-level guys of the division for both. Um, Next round, that Jason Knight defeated Jim Ehlers by split decision. Fun fight. It was real back and forth. I'm not huge on guys like Jason Knight who are like, talking crap and like the Diaz brothers kind of do it, but then like Jason Knight was like getting hit, and he was like, "Oh, you can't take me down," and then he got like taken down at the end of the round, and it's like, it's like you're not, you're still like a lower to mid level guy, you're not like some like top prospect or anything like that, it's like. I don't know. Maybe at least with the Diaz brothers, it feels a little bit more deserved. I guess like they can do it, but they've been in the game. They kind of know their game very well, you know. But anyways, it was a fun fight. I remember Ehlers actually hit Knight pretty hard in that third round. Knight had some good volume going on. He kind of had like he was doing a lot of like 1-2 kick combos, but with a lot of volume. The ground games were actually pretty fun, Knight's a very guy that's very active off of his back. I think Ehlers at one time he was a pretty hot prospect, but he really fell off as a prospect. I kind of wonder if the UFC is gonna keep him. If they do, just more lower tier fighters for him, and same with Jason Knight. And finally, Luis Enrique defeated Dmitry Smolyakov by rear naked choke in the second round. Smolyakov, that guy needs to get his fitness level better. I think both actually need to get their fitness level better. It was already a red flag that Smolyakov this would have actually been a more smarter underdog pick, I guess, because it was like Smolenakov had a lot of things going against him. Like, it was his first fight in the UFC, and he's never been past the first round. So, in this case, I should have probably gone. And Luis Enrique is a younger fighter, and he's a tough guy, too. Should have maybe just picked Luis Enrique, but that's, I can say that in hindsight because he won. It's not Smolyakov actually showed some really good takedown defense for the most part. He hit Enrique actually a couple times with his boxing. I think if Smolyakov actually gets his fitness better, he might actually turn out to be something. Luis Enrique, I mean, he's young, he's tough, he's big. He might be able to actually be something as well. Just more lower to mid tier guys in the division for both. And that's pretty much it for my post-fight analysis for UFC on Fox 20. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please support me in my journey of being an author by buying The Mustard Prince and the Condiment Kingdom for $4.99 at my website or on Amazon.com, or my short stories for $1.99. That's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.